Our series, Show and Tell, will take you inside some of the great libraries, both public and private, to explore books and treasures from Jewish history.
So, in some ways, this exhibition it's not a Maimonides exhibition. It's not even a book exhibition. It is 800 years of Jewish history. We're using objects, we're using Maimonides as the conduits through which to tell stories. There is a piece here that's very rare. There are probably only 7 or 8 of these in the world, that was printed in Venice in 1665. The book itself is small. It's pretty unassuming. It says Mada Ahavas Manim. These are the first 3 books of Maimonides Mishneh Torah. Compared to the 2 volumes that we were looking at before, this is very small.
Yeah.
It means it has no commentary.
Doesn't look so impressive.
It's just the text of Maimonides. This is part of what was taking place in the 17th century of a sort of back to the basics.
Let's get back to the
Exactly.
essentials.
Let's move away from commentary so that we can just study what does the original say, what does Maimonides say, and there's actually something similar that happens with the Talmud, where you're just studying the Gemara itself and the commentary. So these are small format editions.
Sure.
It's for people who are not scholars necessarily, and they're going to
Let's just
learn
get back to the
Exactly.
basics. So why is this significant?
It's significant not because of Maimonides and not even because of the thing that I just told you. It's significant because of what's on top of the title page. What does it look like to you?
I see a man riding a lion.
He is riding a lion. And in fact, we have the graphic here, which is much larger. And if you look at it, you see that the lion is looking back to this man, and his mouth is open, his teeth are very sharp and bared, and the man is putting his hand into the lion's mouth.
Like Siegfried and Roy, like they're doing a...
Yes, but things worked out not so well for them. Here, this man, it would seem to be just fine. The lion looks like it's submissive. What this represents is the first printed reference to Sabbatai Zevi.
Wow.
The famous Messiah that led to, this was the greatest Jewish messianic movement in history, that between 1665 and 1666, much of the Jewish world was sure that now the Messiah had arrived. People were selling property, ready to make their way to Jerusalem. There were children who were prophesying in the streets. It eventually became something that was regarded as heresy once Sabbatai Zevi converted to Islam under duress, although it was justified mystically, Kabbalistically as to what he was doing. And there was something essentially that scholars refer to as Sabbateanism. It was very important and very complicated and sort of
caused a rupture in rabbinic authority in Jewish history.
Over the next
this
2
is
centuries. The first printed reference to
Sabbatai Zevi.
The reason we know that it's Sabbatai Zevi.
Yeah, how do you know for sure? I mean,
Okay.
I see where you're coming from, because you see the lion, he looks, I guess not everybody rides a lion. You got to have some messianic ambitions. But how do you know for sure?
There was a letter that Nathan of Gaza, who was a young man, a young Kabbalist, had written. He actually describes that Sabbatai Zevi is the Messiah, and he's riding a fire-breathing lion. It is possible that this is, in fact, an earlier version of what that letter was. And the work that I did in order to understand its importance, I'm not the first person to have this, I didn't discover this and claim this as Sabbatai Zevi. But what is fascinating is when you can start comparing one printed book to something that might have been printed just, adjacent to it. And this is where we get to the idea of understanding who a particular person was and trying to figure out what their activities were and what they were interested in, the same way that we were thinking about the Rambam before. The printer of this volume was called Domenico Vedelago. This was finished in early June 1665. So this is before we know that Nathan, before the scholars have, until recently, until what we're talking about now, before Nathan has even spread this information. However, 2 weeks later, Vedelago finished a different book, and there he again he explicitly refers to the Messiah coming, and there's a reference to a Sabbatai.
Wow.
I could show you, it's fascinating. And then there's another book 3 months later that has another reference to the Messiah.
Was this printer Jewish?
He was.
Yes.
What probably happened, because the title page is so, it's sort of cobbled together, is that he was finishing this book back to the story about we've got this new educational
Uprising.
intention. Back to the story of, here we've got this new educational approach, just printing Maimonides, the first 3 books of the Mishneh Torah. They're about to finish. He hears about this Messiah arriving. He gets very excited. It's spontaneous messianic response. He rapidly commissions an engraving of this man riding a lion. If you look at engravings from the 17th century and from the 16th century, there are some that are amazingly done. This I could not do, but it's not one of those.
Finest
it's okay.
from the,
So in other words, he somehow gets somebody to do this.
And he adds it on,
They move the basic, if you look at it, you
Yeah,
never
it
see
looks-
the title page. It looks weird. They sort of
and you
stamp
see it
it
goes
at the top.
onto the
It does.
page. It looks,
Yes.
this happened post facto. Like
They
he's
ma-
hearing the news.
Yes, so basically they had set the title page, but before they printed it, they just sort of moved that block down, and then they ran it through the
And
press
you
a
can
second time.
literally
and put
see
that
it.
thing on
You
top.
can see it on the page. Wow,
Exactly.
the first printed reference to Sabbatai. Unreal. That's really cool.